Hi, and welcome back to the Bookstore Everywhere. So today I am here with my May wrap-up. I actually haven't worked out how many books I read in May yet, so let me count and I'll tell you. So I read 14 books in May, which is not bad. My TBR for June is ambitious, like it's more than that. You can see my June TBR in the Whatever-a-thon TBR, which I'll link down below. I do also have a few arcs I want to get to, which I might mention at the end of this video. But for now, let's just dive right in with my May wrap-up. So the first one I read was Ruin and Rising by Leigh Bardugo. This is the last book in the Grisha trilogy, which starts with Shadow and Bone. I decided to reread this because I wanted to read Rule of Wolves, and I was going to reread King of Scars, and I ended up just rereading all of them. And also because I was watching the Shadow and Bone Netflix show, and it just made me want to be back in this world, so I reread all of the Rishaverse books, so there's a lot of Leigh Bardugo in this wrap-up, but I read Ruin and Rising at the start of the month. This one took slightly longer than the other two. I think I was reading a couple of books at one time, and I did just find this a little bit slower. Same with when I read it last year for the first time. I did still enjoy this one. I think all of these got 4 stars from me. I'm not going to tell you what this one is about because, as I said, it's the last one in the Grisha trilogy. But basically the series follows Alina, who at the start of Shadow and Bone realises that she has this special power that makes her Grisha that's never kind of come out in her life before. And in the world there is also the Fold, which is this really, really dark place in the world that splits part of the world up. And because of her power, they think she might be able to do something that takes down the Fold or makes it go away. And because of that, she ends up with the Darkling, who is involved in all of the Fold and the dark things that are going on in the world. So she ends up with him in the royal palace, and chaos ensues from there. I really like this series, but it's definitely not my favourite series in the Grishaverse, but they're fun. They're not the best written, but I do still enjoy them, and they're a great kind of setup for the Grishaverse in general, so I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. And the next one I read was my classic for the month as recommended to me by a friend, and that was Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. I really, really enjoyed this one. I read this mainly on audiobook, and I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars as well. This was recommended to me by my friend Harry, and honestly, I didn't know what to expect, but I really enjoyed it. So this follows Anne, who is an orphan and is being sent to live with these brother and sister, who throughout the entire story I thought were married until the very end of the book. But she's sent to live with them, and they basically try to, I want to say, educate her, because she's quite a vibrant child, put it that way. So they kind of try and like mellow her, and it's kind of about her kind of growing up and learning about the world, and I really liked it. It was so much fun. It was really entertaining to hear all of the things that Anne got up to, and it kind of reminded me of My Naughty Little Sister, which was a book I read as a child. So it felt kind of nostalgic for me, even though I didn't read this one as a child, and I really enjoyed it, so I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. And the next one I read was Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. As I said, there is a lot of Leigh Bardugo in this list, and this is one of my favourite books and favourite series in the world. It's definitely my favourite Leigh Bardugo series, and I just love this so much. This follows the Six of Crows, who are basically 6 spies and thieves and people like that who go on a heist throughout this book. And I honestly love it. I love the characters so much. They're so dear to me, and I couldn't help but rate this one 5 out of 5 stars. I was going through it thinking objectively this is 4.5, and I will save the other half star for Crooked Kingdom because I always enjoy Crooked Kingdom a little bit more. But I honestly couldn't. This made me so emotional. I just love the characters so much, and seeing them go through what they go through in this book just made me want to just rate it 5 stars because I love it so much. So that's Six of Crows. The next one I read was The Love Curse of Melody McIntyre by Robin Talley. This is the Litjoy edition, which I bought off Facebook, and I really, really enjoyed this one. This is a queer book that follows Melody McIntyre, who is the stage manager at her school for her school productions. They're going into the spring musical of Les Mis, and at the very start of this book, in their last spring production, her girlfriend breaks up with her, and they decide that because of that, there is kind of a curse that if Melody McIntyre falls in love, everything will go wrong. It's kind of about all of these curses that the cast and crew think make the plays go wrong because of a play that went very wrong in 2007, and they decide that Melody McIntyre mustn't fall in love during the production of the spring musical. Obviously, what happens is Melody meets somebody who she really, really likes and is also in the cast. And honestly, this one was really entertaining, was a lot of fun, it was really diverse, and I really liked its queerness and its kind of, it wasn't a coming out story. Melody McIntyre was just bi and with girls in this book, and I just really, really enjoyed that. I thought it was really good and so much fun. It was a little bit far-fetched at times and a little bit lacking in logic, but I still really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And then the next one I read, it comes as no surprise, was Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. As I said, this is always slightly more enjoyable than Six of Crows for me. I just love the plot of this book. It honestly really, really draws me in, and I love the characters so, so much, and the alternate points of view. Just love them. I just love them. I love the plot of this book. I read Six of Crows and I've always thought, like, how can they carry on this story? And then they do. And it's so much fun and I really, really enjoy it. And I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. What can I say? I love Six of Crows. I love them so much. So the next one I read was Don't Breathe a Word by Jordan Taylor. This is a proof copy, which I think came out on the 27th of May, so I think this one is out now. And this one was strange. It was a lot of fun. It was really entertaining. It's following 2 girls who live in this boarding school 60 years apart. So Connie is living in the 1960s, and I think the other girl is called Eva, and she is living in the present day in this boarding school. And it's basically about this kind of mystery that happened in the boarding school, which Connie is part of in the 1960s, involving like a nuclear bunker, which she goes in with 5 of her friends, and only 5 of them come out, and 1 of them never comes out. And it kind of is told in alternate points of view from present day, when Eva is trying to find out what's happened to Connie and what happened to the 6 in the nuclear bunker. And it's also told from Connie's point of view when it's actually happening. I did really like this. I found it really entertaining, but it wasn't without its kind of issues. I just kind of felt a bit disconnected to the characters at some points, and I found this just made me be like, why would you do that? Like, why are the characters doing this? It kind of lacked logic on why the characters acted the way that they did in some parts of the story, which I didn't enjoy, and I was just left feeling a bit like, why would they act like that? And it was a bit without logic, which annoyed me ever so slightly. I especially found that with Eva's point of view in present day, because she was also part of this elite kind of group in the boarding school called the Fives, which was linked to the 5 people who came out of the nuclear bunker, and she's trying to find out why it is linked. But I really liked it in a lot of ways. It was a quick paced mystery that I got through very quickly, and it did want to make me keep reading, so I gave this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. And the next one was another mediocre read for me, and that was The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. I still to this day don't know why I bought this. I don't know why I read it, but honestly I was drawn into this Waterstones edition when it came out, not because of the cover, but the end papers, which have this snake on, and the undercover dust jacket, which I really liked at the time, and honestly I am not bothered about it anymore. I don't really know why I read it. This is the prequel to the Hunger Games, which is set following President Snow in the 10th annual Hunger Games, when he is a mentor to one of the contestants. What are they called? They have a name. I can't remember what they're called, but yeah, contestants in the Hunger Games. So he is a mentor for them, for one of them, and it's following kind of his relationship with the person he is having to mentor. He is in school, it's following a lot about privilege and his own life, and I just didn't like this a lot. Like, it was okay, the plot was entertaining enough. I listened to this mostly on audiobook. I probably wouldn't have read, honestly wouldn't have found it a slog if I'd have read the physical version, because it is quite long, and I'm glad I read the audiobook mostly. But yeah, I just don't know what I expected, because President Snow is obviously evil in the Hunger Games, and obviously he has to come from somewhere, right? When he was a child or a teenager. I just found with this one that it was like Suzanne Collins started to write him to be likeable because that's what she knows how to do. And then at one point she just realised, oh shit, like I have to write him to be evil. So she just changed it and was like, yeah, we'll just have him start doing all these evil things now. And it just felt really kind of jolting to me, and I didn't feel natural, didn't feel like a natural progression, and it did kind of really annoy me. And I just didn't like the main character at all. I don't really enjoy books where I don't like the main character, so that's probably why. As I said, don't really know why I picked it up, but I'm glad that I finished it so I can get rid of it now. This one was 3 out of 5 stars from me, so not a super low rating. I did still like it, but I'm definitely not going to read it again. And then we have King of Scars, also by Leigh Bardugo. So this was the one I was going to reread before reading Rule of Wolves, and then I just decided to reread the whole Grishaverse. This one I really, really enjoyed, but doesn't quite hit the same mark as Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom for me. I gave this one 4.5 out of 5 stars. I won't say too much about this one because it kind of gives away some of the earlier events in the Grisha trilogy, so you should definitely read them in order. But this one essentially follows some of the characters from the Shadow and Bone series and from the Six of Crows series after the events of both of those series. And I really like the idea of bringing all of the characters back together and kind of get the band back together vibes. So I did really enjoy this one, and I do love some of the characters, and I sympathise with the characters, and they make me really emotional, and I really enjoyed a lot of the points of view. It just doesn't have the same kind of found family feel for me as Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom does, but I still gave this one 4.5 stars out of 5. And the next one I read was Threadneedle by Carrie Thomas. This one is also now out in the UK. I think this one also came out on the 27th of May. And this one was a big surprise for me. I was really daunted by it because it is thick, but I really, really enjoyed it. This follows Anna, who is a witch, and well, she has magical powers, and she's basically told by her grandmother who she lives with. No, it's not her grandmother. She's basically told by her aunt who she lives with that magic is kind of evil and you should only use it in kind of cases of emergency, and you should kind of not use magic the whole time. And slowly throughout the book she kind of realises that she's very controlled by her grandmother because of the other characters that come in and form friendships with her. This one kept me guessing till the very end. I found it very, very readable, very easy to read, very quick to get through, but also kept me guessing. I didn't know what was going to go on. The magic in this was written really well. I felt very drawn into the story, and I really liked the writing in this one, so I gave this one 4.5 stars out of 5 as well. And then I read Aristotle and Dante, Discover the Secrets of the Universe. This one was sent to me by the publisher, so thank you very much to the publisher. Threadneedle was gifted to me by Jo, so thank you very much to my friend Jo. She received 2 copies from the publisher, so she gave one to me. So thank you to Jo for gifting me that one. But this one was also from Simon & Schuster, and I really enjoyed this. This is finally, after 9 years, coming out as a standard British paperback before the release of the second book, and I finally had a chance to read it because of that. I really, really enjoyed it. I gave this one 4 stars. It has a very kind of lyrical, poetic writing style about it that follows Aristotle and Dante, who are 2 teenage boys discovering kind of who they are and their sexuality and their identities, and it follows Aristotle, who's an angry teen who has a brother in prison, and Dante, who is a know-it-all with a unique perspective on life. I did really, really enjoy this one. I just felt that because of the way it was told and because there was so much dialogue, kind of took away a chance to better get to know the characters in some aspects. So it let me down a little bit in some very small ways, but I did still really enjoy it, and I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. And the next one I read was Rule of Wolves by Leigh Bardugo. This finishes my Leigh Bardugo reread/read because I read this one for the first time as it only came out earlier this year. And I really, really enjoyed this one, just not quite so much as King of Scars or Six of Crows or Crooked Kingdom. Again, this one follows some of the characters from both of the stories and also brings in some side characters, or some main characters from the other books as side characters in this one, which I loved, even though they were mentioned really, really briefly. But the thing that kind of let me down in this one was it kind of started following royal people and political kind of people who weren't really introduced that much earlier on in the story, and I just didn't have much of a connection to, and it just felt like they were there to drive the plot forward a little bit, so it did let me down ever so slightly in that aspect, and for that reason I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars, but I really, really liked the ending. And I liked how this one opens up more stories in the Grishaverse, possibly. It was a very open ending, which I really, really liked, and that last line was brilliant. And then, as part of Do the Thing-a-thon, which is what I read the last couple of books for, I also read Black Beauty, and this one was strange. This is from the perspective of a horse, and I started this book thinking, how can you write a whole book from the perspective of a horse? And I kind of felt like that throughout the whole thing. But this one is really interesting because it gives the perspective of a horse throughout their entire life, basically, well, kind of throughout most of their life. And it kind of talks about the bad treatment that horses get and the good treatment that horses get. And I did enjoy the message in this one, and I kind of grew to like the characters quite a lot, the horses I mean, and it also gave me a lot of information about horses that I didn't really know before, like about tack, which was really strange because I think if I read this as a child, I probably would have been a bit confused by all of that. Like at one point the horse is just like, I'm 15.5 hands high, and I'm like, I don't know if I'd have known what that meant as a child. So I found this one slightly strange in all of that, how informative it was, but I really loved the moral of this story of be kind to animals, and that they do know how we treat them, and they do care, and it does affect their lives in a big way. So I gave this one 3.5 stars. I listened to the audiobook and I did enjoy it, but it kind of wasn't what I expected. And on the same vein, we have The Jungle Book by Rudyard Kipling. This one was a very odd experience for me because, as we all do, I do know the story from the Disney film, and I expected this to be all about Mowgli. However, this is actually a collection of 7 short stories and 7 songs that is set within the jungle, and only 3 of them are about Mowgli and his story. So because of that, it kind of threw me a little bit, but I did still enjoy this. I found it very entertaining. I listened to the audiobook, and the narrator was absolutely brilliant. It was the audiobook on Scribd, and it was just great, really entertaining, and he did a great job of reading out the songs as well. This was great. It was just a little bit up and down for me with the short story thing, and because I was listening to it on audiobook and didn't have like a visual representation of the stories, I wasn't exactly sure when the story was changing and who was the main character in those stories. And I actually didn't realise until afterwards that this was a collection of short stories. I just found it very jolting and quite jarring, but I did enjoy a lot of it. I found it very up and down. I gave this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. And last but not least, we have The Unpopular Vote by Jasper Sanchez, and I loved this one. I was also sent this one by Harper 360, so thank you to them. This is an interesting one for me because the main character has the same full name as my boyfriend, and they are both kind of involved in politics. This one follows Mark Adams, who is running for student council president in his school. He is also trans, and it's very, very diverse. It was very informative on what being trans is like, and there was a lot of kind of day-to-day discussions about that and using a binder and things like that. I found this one brilliantly diverse, but also authentic and natural. All of the side characters had a lot of discussions about their sexualities, their gender identities, and their religions. There was a Jewish side character, there was a Muslim side character. I just really enjoyed this one. It was very character driven for me, and I loved the found family kind of aspect in it. And there was a lot of important discussions about being transgender and support from friends and family. And this one kind of does follow Mark's relationship with his father, who is not very happy that he's trans. This was more character driven than plot driven for me, and it wasn't perfect, but I did really, really enjoy it. So I gave this one 4.5 out of 5 stars. So that is the 14 books that I read in May. Now I've talked about all of them, it feels like a lot. I have a very ambitious TBR for June. As I said, there is a lot more books on that list than there was on this TBR. But I'm very excited for whatever-thon and the books that I'm going to read for it. I can't wait for that. I also have a couple of proofs, as I said earlier, that I do want to get to this month, and they are The Maidens, which is kind of like a Greek mythology-inspired thriller that's about a murder that happens in Cambridge University, I believe. That one comes out on the 10th of June. And then we also have Blackout, which is a collection of short stories that I believe is published on the 24th of June in the UK. And that is basically about 6 teenagers who are stuck in a New York blackout. and it's 6 short stories about what happens on that night. I'm very excited to read that one as well, so hopefully I will be able to get to all of my Whatever-a-thon TBR and those two, but we will see whether that happens. I've already started reading today for the Whatever-a-thon readathon, so I'm very excited about those. I hope you enjoyed this wrap up for my 14 books that I read in May. Please drop it a like and let me know in the comments what you read in May and how many books you managed to read, and I will see you next time with another video. Bye!